This is the Real Estate Investing 365 podcast, your go-to source for real estate investing strategies so you can start living the life you want and get where you want to go. With your host, Justin Hanna.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Real Estate Investing 365. Today I got with me Peter Conti. He is located out on the East Coast, Annapolis, Maryland. He's been in real estate for a long time. I think he got started in the early 90s after being an auto mechanic, I believe. He's an author of Commercial Real Estate Investing for Dummies. You guys have probably seen those book series all over. I think you've sold 280,000 or 300,000 copies of that thing, Peter?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that, a lot. So you've definitely been out there and been around. So thanks, Peter. Thanks for being here and excited to talk today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Before we dive in, I gave kind of a brief overview of you, but there's a lot more to you. We've been talking here for a little bit already. And why don't you give us kind of a background of how you got into real estate, where you came from before real estate? Because like I mentioned, I think you were an auto mechanic before, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I came from a family of 7 kids, and our parents got us together one day and said, "We want you all to go to college. We obviously can't help you. Good luck." So I didn't end up going to college, and I'm working away as an auto mechanic. And while I enjoyed doing that, I wanted to do more, be more, live more. And I, started seeing some books and things about, buying real estate with nothing down. I thought, I qualify for that.
Yeah.
So, I had the idea in my head, and then just finally decided. I got to a point where I said, I'm gonna do this, and went out. And the first property I bought, I just said, I'm going to do this. I realized at that point that there's a lot of people that, whether it's real estate or anything else in life, they'll talk about it. They say, I want that. That's my dream. I'm going to do that someday, or whatever, but they never do it.
That's for
and
sure.
So I knew that the doing it was more important than anything. So I found a realtor. I said, I want an investment property. I have no idea what I'm doing. I want to get investment property. So he found this duplex. I had no idea if it was a good deal or not. And it was a HUD then had a special program, 5% down for investors. And so, I scraped that money together, went to the closing. And Justin, I was so scared I had wanted to do that. I looked at all my other options in life as an auto mechanic. Let's see,
Yeah.
I could work in a warehouse,
Yeah.
I could be an auto mechanic. Nothing wrong with being an auto mechanic. It's kind of fun to fix a car. They bring it in, it's not running, and you bring it back to life, right? But
Yeah.
but that was kind of my ticket out. I didn't want to blow it, and I was so scared, but I also had this incredible desire. I was physically shaking at the closing. And the realtor's name was Don. He reached over, he patted me on the back. He said, "Peter, take a deep breath. It's going to be all right."
Yeah.
So I bought this duplex. I'm in there, scrubbing, clean. I remember I'm cleaning out the tubs. I had bought Carlton Sheets. Of course, some of our older listeners will know who Carlton Sheets is. He passed away recently, but one of the early kind of, buy houses, nothing down guys.
Yeah.
And he had said, when you're in there cleaning that house, just tell yourself, I'm not living here. I'm not living here. So I remember I'm scrubbing the tub, just thinking, I am not living here. I'm not living here. I was so worried. What if I can't, my friends and family are going, you bought a duplex. What if you can't rent it out? And, the payment was $811 a month. I've never forgotten that. I'm thinking, I don't know. What if I can't rent it out?
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted the tub real clean, right? So someone was going to rent it. So anyways, got that one done and went on and kind of started from there. Did a 2, a 4, a 7, another 4, 24, and kind of moved up and, into shopping centers and did some development stuff and apartment buildings and 300 units and just all kinds of stuff. And then started teaching people and just had a blast over the years, just teaching people and writing books and going and doing seminars and jumping around and just having a lot of fun and
so you
probably
kind of got away from the auto mechanic thing. It sounds like.
Yeah. We did a seminar one time out in California, and we go there and get set up. And at that time we had a family that worked for us. They drove with their kids around the country with a trailer with all our big speakers and soundboard and equipment, and kind of like a band or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard a car go by. I'm like, are we in a garage? and they didn't have room in their conference center. So what they did is they took a parking garage, put up like this canvas curtain around part of it, put carpeting down on the floor, put these big fake like pillars up, and called it our seminar room. There's no heat.
That's funny.
So anyways, we had a lot of fun doing that over the years.
Okay.
And then learned how to do stuff more, internet webinars and stuff like that. And then ended up getting injured 7 years ago and kind of did a major reset, and relooked at things, and that's led me to where I am today.
Okay. So back when you first got started and you bought that duplex, what year was that? That was in the early 90s, right?
That was 1990.
1990.
Yeah,
so
1990.
I guess 1990. So how old were you then?
I was 30.
Okay.
30 years old.
And then,
right? Born in 60, 60, 70, 80, 90. Yep, I can do math today.
all right.
So get this. I had a goal of I'm going to have 100 units my first year, right? Why not set a big, and it's not that big of a goal looking back on it now, but back then it seemed like a huge goal.
Uh-huh.
And so I bought this duplex, and then I'm doing my real estate investing. I'm looking up properties and looking to see, they had different data services than they have now, but you could find out, who owned it, what they paid for it, that kind of stuff. I'm looking to, check and see, what kind of roofs does it have? What kind of shape is it in? And I had all my lead cards, and I remember I organized them by phone number numerically, because I wouldn't want to call the same person twice if I'm calling it, right?
Right.
That's really important for your real estate investing. So I'm doing my real estate investing, I'm making some offers, but I had no idea really how to value a property. So I had no idea what something was worth. So I'm scared to death. I'm looking at stuff. I'm like, either I'm so scared I don't make an offer, in which case someone else buys it if it's a good deal, or I make an offer. I'm like, I'd make these offers at 30 or 40% of value, like if it goes for this price, I know that would be a great deal, which of course those don't get accepted. And so I bought that in March of that year.
Mm-hmm.
Here I'm going through the year, doing my real estate investing, right? No more properties. It's August. Now I'm sitting at Chuck E. Cheese's, because I kind of combine different things. I was there at Chuck E. Cheese's with my kids. So I have my insurance guy that wanted to meet with me. He does his annual whatever review. Basically, his job is to talk you from going from a term policy into a whole life policy, which I calculated the returns on a whole life policy. Back then, I think they were about 2 or 3%. That obviously doesn't compare with what you can do in real estate. But I think, everyone should have life insurance. I believe in it. You should totally have it. I just don't really like investments that require me to die in order to pay off, if you can get me right there. So he's going through his thing, Peter, do you care for your wife and kids? Yes, Dan, I do, that whole bit.
Right.
And he's like, well, how are you going to take care of him? I'm like, I'm a real estate investor. He goes, really? How? He does the Dr. Phil thing. He goes, how is that going for you? And I said, well, I got a duplex. And Dan, bless his heart, he goes, Peter, do you really think that's going to be enough? And so that's my dog, my Yorkie, barking in there.
No problem.
So anyways, I realized right then that I had been spinning my wheels like so many people do with real estate investing. You get in, whether it's just looking at stuff and not actually figuring out how to buy it, or going to buying course after course on webinars, or going to seminars or whatever when things were more open, and just not getting results. Right. I was telling myself and other people as a real estate investor, but I wasn't a real estate investor. Yeah. And I realized it in that moment, right when Dan said that, and I just thought, okay, I get what I'm doing. I said, Dan, tell you what, a year from now when you meet with me, you can put anything. If I don't have my real estate investing going in a big way, you can put anything you want to in front of me and I'll sign it. And I knew that would kind of put some pressure on me and also be kind of funny anyways. Right. The part I'm leaving out is earlier that year, I had found a mentor, a guy, he had over 1,000 apartment units. He knew what he was doing. He could have shown me how to get through these obstacles and value stuff. And he wanted $5,000 to work with him. And I looked Justin, I looked at that through the eyes of an auto mechanic, from an auto mechanic who's making $24,000 a year. My best year as an auto mechanic, probably more like $20,000 a year. $5,000 is a heck of a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
From a real estate investor's perspective, $5,000 in the deals we do nowadays, I mean, that's rounding error. We pay, an attorney more than that to do the paperwork on some of the syndication deals and stuff we're doing,
Sure.
So I had told this mentor, his name was Keith, early in the year. I said, no, that's too expensive. I can't do that. So when Dan kind of did his thing, I realized I had to do something. And I called up Keith and I said, you know what? Sign me up. I'm going to come take your training. And I actually only ended up spending a couple days with him, but it was worth every penny of it. He showed me how to value commercial property, apartment buildings, and how to control stuff, how to get stuff under contract where the seller is obligated to sell it to you, but you're not obligated to the seller. You can get out, for a period of time with no costs whatsoever. Which that change of being able to use an addendum is what he taught me, to putting an addendum on the back of an agreement that had your own escape clauses and things built into it, allowed me to get over the fear, which so many people have, especially with commercial real estate, of they think they have to have all the value exactly right and figure out all the expenses and get everything figured out down to the penny before they go out and make an offer. And the nice thing about using that method is we look at it. I teach my students how to value stuff quickly, but we don't spend a lot of time on a deal until we get under contract. Once we get under contract, then we dig in, we do our initial due diligence and start looking at the numbers. We can always go back to the seller and say, hey, gosh, we were way off on our initial evaluation. We can't pay you what we thought we would. We're gonna have to change that. Or, if it's something like a commercial master lease, we've gotten to agree to awesome terms or something. Those are pretty good deals anyways. You don't have to fight them as much on price. But that to me was probably the biggest change ever in my real estate investing career, was learning. And it sounds like such a simple thing, right? I'm sure we've got listeners that are thinking like, duh, Peter, of course you're going to get, have escape clauses in your agreement. But
back then in 1990, I mean, again, the learning environment was so different, right? I mean, you couldn't just go listen to Bigger Pockets or get online and look at all this stuff, but
exactly,
it was harder to get that information across,
exactly.
I would imagine.
The other thing
I was only 3 years old, so
yeah. The other thing I found was that I went out just on kind of just, I'm going to get it done to buy the duplex, and I started learning. It seemed like the more I learned about real estate, the more there was it could go wrong. And so I know for people just getting started investing, real estate can seem very, very overwhelming. There's all this stuff, and there's deeds and language and, riparian rights and stuff like that. And issues where like the previous owner filed a bunch of insurance claims and that makes it a property that you don't want to buy. I mean, who would know that, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're in it and you've done it. So anyways, that was kind of a big shift for me. And then the other thing that I was really blessed to be able to learn from myself was to step into the role of a teacher. In 1997, I started teaching initially with one partner. We worked together for about 8 years, and then a number of other partners over the years. I've had some great partnerships. Each one of them has just been awesome. What we found with our students, and this may sound a little strange, but hey, we're on the podcast here. We're getting the real inside scoop here, right? We've got students who are doing these deals and coming up with stuff. And I remember one of them had a property that maybe he could buy it subject to the existing financing. That's where you buy it, leaving the existing financing in place, leave the loan in the seller's name. And I had been to some seminars and read some books, and I knew the concept, but I'd never done one of those deals. And so my partner said, hey, this guy's got this thing it could be a subject to. How do you do that? I'm like, oh, you just do this. He goes, okay. So he went and did a coaching call with him. He came back the next week and he goes, yeah, Jack got 3 properties using that subject to thing you told him, how to do. I'm like, really?
So that's funny. I've never done one. Yeah.
So yeah, we've been blessed with all of these awesome students who go out, and I don't want to say, to my students that you guys are guinea pigs, but with being able to help thousands of people with all sorts of deals, everything from houses to commercial properties across the country. And during my fun time I've had over the past 30 years of investing myself, and 24 years, 23 teaching, I've been exposed to a lot of deals and a lot of things, and had exactly the chance to be like, okay, well, let's go, let's try this. Let's see if they'll agree to this, or let's add this clause to the paperwork. Let's do this thing, or we find this other way to bring some income in. And it's just, I've been so just, I don't know, so lucky, privileged, blessed to be in this position where I get to be a part of all this deals and stuff going on. Cause I love doing deals. I love doing deals. Last night I had, one of my students, we use a forum where they can get their questions answered in between the live calls I do on Zoom these days with them. But, she had put a thing on there and said, okay, I got under contract. What do I do next? And so I saw that on my phone on the app, and it was like 11:30 at night. I came over to the computer and I typed in an answer out to her. I'm like, okay, here you go.
That's awesome.
Let's jump on a call. Let's jump on a call tomorrow. Here's my link to my calendar. Pick a time tomorrow. You got the thing under contract. This is where the fun starts. We're going to jump in and, really dig in and look at this thing. That's the one that's a 12 cap I told you about.
Yeah. We mentioned that, I think, before we got on the air. So I guess you're more excited about doing these deals and running numbers than you were about putting a new alternator on a car or something.
Yeah. You could say that. Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed fixing stuff. I don't fix my own cars anymore. Sometimes people ask me that, but no.
I enjoy fixing stuff too. Actually, my parents owned an auto mechanic shop growing up, and you can do really well, I think, an auto mechanic if you're the business owner. But I think as a mechanic, it's kind of tough to make good money if you're just like working for somebody else. But that's like a lot of jobs, you know what I mean? Like me as a lineman, I can make great money as a lineman, but I'm not really going to get to where I want to go. And you kind of saw that being a mechanic and you were 30, you probably had kids at the time. You kind of saw the future. You're like, well, this isn't quite the direction that I'm not going to get where I need to be doing this. So I need
what I did, Justin? I went and visited my future. I went and found people who had been in, the auto repair business. They had their own service station, their own garage repair shop or whatever. I went and said, hey, I'm a young mechanic. I want to learn more about the business. I appreciate and respect what you're doing. It's kind of same way you would go to like a real estate mentor or something, right?
Sure.
You give them the honor of, you've been down that path and I want to learn from you. And I saw these guys, they were old and they were tired and they were just, it wasn't a pretty picture. They were.
Yeah. No, I know.
I didn't want to go there.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I obviously had the option to go down the mechanic path if I wanted to, because my parents owned a shop. My stepdad ended up passing away from cancer. And ever since that happened, I felt like it was a lot to do with working on cars all the time. You're always in like the oil and the chemicals and doing all this stuff, like who knows, they can't prove what it's from, but I just felt like that must have something to do with it. For 30 years, you're working around that stuff. And so
we used to clean parts in this parts like safety clean tank or whatever.
Oh yeah.
It's like a solvent.
Yeah. We had the same thing.
No rubber gloves, no nothing.
You just dive in.
If you had like an engine rebuild or something, you'd be in there all day long. At the end of the day, my hands, like halfway up my arm, would actually be buzzing from the exposure to the chemicals.
Right.
I haven't had any effects yet. Hopefully, my
I think you've been out of it quite a while, hopefully long enough, but I totally agree. And then, being a lineman, seeing all these other old linemen, I think a lot of people probably see that out in whatever career field they're in. They see somebody that's been in the same job for 30 or 40 years. And it's
do people get injured doing electrical work like that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think the death rate's pretty high, for like catastrophic instances. I think here at my company, we've had maybe like 10 deaths in the last 7 or 8 years.
Wow.
Because it's dangerous, working on electricity and doing that stuff. If one little mistake can really, cause it. Or during storms, I mean, sometimes you're working, 30, 40, 45 hours straight a lot of times, And so when you're that tired and fatigued and you're just working night after night, the rate for incidences can really skyrocket, it gets kind of dangerous. So anyways, the point I was trying to make is just, if you're out there and you're seeing these coworkers or somebody, you can kind of see your future. Go see what it's going to be. If that's not where you want to end up, then do what you did and what I'm trying to do, and try to put yourself on a different path. So you bought that first duplex, and then how did it go after that first year that you told you're going to meet that insurance guy after the first year? What happened in that next year? You ended up buying a bunch more properties and got
Yeah,
your
I started
investing.
buying stuff. The method I used was the only thing I knew at that point in time was owner carry financing. So I just was back then classified ads and stuff, but just looking for leads and stuff. Started to develop some relationships with real estate brokers, and I would just call people, and I had my little information sheet. I call it a gold form now, but I fill out the property information, and so I was on the phone, and the phone's like shaking in my. This is back when you
Yeah.
actually held like a real handset. The phone's
Yeah.
shaking in my hand, which didn't matter because they can't see me, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, can you tell me how many units is it? And is that 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom? Okay.
Right.
And do you know how old the roof is? I'm like getting up my courage to ask the real question, right? Which was do you would you would you uh, would you would you maybe be interested in carrying some of the financing? I mean, that's about like what it sounded like.
Sure.
And whatever most people would go, no, I don't think we just want to sell it. I'd be, okay, well, thank you very much, have a good day. And I just kept going and calling people until I found someone that said, well, yeah, we would do that. Now these are definitely C-class properties.
Uh-huh.
The trick to doing some of this creative financing stuff is you're not going to go out and buy like a brand new the CVS building on the corner, an A-class property with
Right.
nothing down creative technique. But these neighborhoods where, for example, one of my students found a 48 unit in South Carolina a couple weeks ago, where it's 40% vacant. There's not anything really wrong with the property other than it's just been severely mismanaged. The owner is older, hasn't been able to keep with it. He wants to move down to Florida. That property, especially with what's going on with the pandemic right now, you can't sell that thing with a conventional loan. No lender's going to touch that thing with a 10-foot pole.
Right.
So the owner's choices are sell it for all cash. If he does, just like selling a house, if he's going to sell it for all cash, he's going to take a severe hit on the value,
Mm-hmm.
or he's going to have to offer it with terms. So it's going to be a owner carry. It could be a commercial master lease. It might be, depending on what's on it financing wise, it might be buying it, leaving the existing financing in place. And I think once you understand that there's opportunities out there where if you're willing to look beyond a lot of people, they get into commercial real estate and they just go on LoopNet and look on stuff, or they call a couple commercial brokers, and the brokers send them retail stuff. They send them properties that have already been rehabbed, already leased up, 2% occupancy rate. All the units have been remodeled in the past year. The rents are at market rate. Where's the value? There's no upside to that, right?
Well, yeah, and they talk to you like I experienced this, before I started like calling owners myself or getting those lists. I was just trying to call brokers. I didn't know what to do. I was just like, well, let me just call a bunch. And I had a list, in each market I was looking in, I'd make a list of like 25 brokers and I would just start calling them.
Yeah.
None of them took me seriously. They all thought I was a moron. They're just sending me like the crappy deals.
How much money have you got? Send me a proof of funds.
Yeah.
Right. That whole thing.
I try to talk the lingo. I was trying to talk the lingo. Like I thought I knew what I was talking about, but again, I didn't really, I guess. Maybe I did.
How about if you send me a proof of funds, Mr. Commercial Broker? I want to see if you're making money. I don't want to work with some broker who's hasn't closed a deal in 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. So I know what you're talking about there. Well, let's dive into that a little bit. So let's say you're coaching students now, and you have a lot of students from around the country, I guess, and they're sending you the deals that they come across. If somebody wants to get into that first, do you suggest somebody like start with like single family, small multifamily, or just go right to like bigger apartments? What's kind of your thought process on that?
Well, the question a lot of people have is, do I need to start with houses or can I go into commercial? And the answer for me, of course, is I think commercial is more money, bigger opportunities. You're probably going to end up going into commercial eventually someday anyways. Why not just go right there, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so, and I don't think it's really any more work than doing house deals when you come right down to it. Plus, with commercial, there's formulas and things you can use to calculate the value of a property, and I like that. I like having a formula. We can plug in the numbers. We know, for example, with apartment buildings that the expenses on an apartment building, if it's well run, the expenses will be at 45%. And that may vary a little bit depending on, a number of things. The biggest one probably is, who pays for the utilities and that type of thing.
Expenses not including the mortgage, right?
Expenses not including the mortgage is exactly right.
Okay.
And so the problem with looking at commercial properties is whether you're dealing with a broker or LoopNet or directly with a seller, you're getting erroneous information. You can't trust it. We've seen stuff where they say,
Yeah.
oh yeah, the expenses are 18%. Maybe it is. Maybe if the owner goes over there, he does all the repairs himself. He shops at garage sales for leftover countertops and stuff. Maybe his expenses are only 18%, but we know if we buy it, we run it with a property manager running it for us, because you don't want to be the one doing it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Your expenses are going to be 45%, maybe more than that. So what we do is we use something called a commercial cheat sheet that I developed, where if you know the rents, you put the number of units in, you put the rents, and it does the math using those rules of thumb. We use 5% vacancy because we know that any property, even if in a strong market, if you're pushing the rents to be at high market rates, it's going to have about 5% vacancy. Any lender that looks at a property to give you a loan, they're going to use 5% vacancy. So we like 5%. We just put the rents in, and you have to decide what cap rate you're going to use. The one I'm using currently is set just to use 6 as this is a real quick look. This is our like 2-minute look, actually
Sure.
30-second look. You put in the number of units, the rents, boom, it does the math. It basically is taking the income, taking out 5% for vacancy. It's taking out the 45% in expenses, creating a net operating income, which it shows you on there, and then it divides it by 0.06, the cap rate, to tell you the value. And we use that as a quick look to say, we're going to put this property in one of 3 piles. The no pile, if our cheat sheet shows that it's worth $4 million and they're asking $6 million, we're not going to waste any time on it, right?
Yeah.
The maybe pile, and that's where we get most of our deals from, is the maybe pile. If it's priced somewhere, if they're asking 6 and it's showing the value 5.5, or it's somewhere in the ballpark, we're going to put it in the maybe pile, because we find that most deals we get these days, it's done through what we call finding the deal within the deal. It's looking for properties with rents below market and stuff like that. To where if you happen to know, let's say you put the rents in that it's renting for, but you happen to know in that market that the rents are $50 or $100 more per unit, then you've got a deal worth looking into and probably making an offer on.
Sure.
So we have the no pile, the maybe pile, and we have the yes, go sign this deal up pile, like that one I mentioned from last night.
Yeah.
Great deals like that, they don't last. You go sign them up real quick before someone else gets them.
Sure.
So that's kind of the process that we use to go in and evaluate stuff.
Okay. So how are your students, or how do you teach them to find the deals? Because, a lot of people think like buying single family houses, that you just jump on like realtor.com or Zillow and you find the houses that are out there, and you make some offers, and then obviously you can start mailing people or calling. But how do you actually find like the addresses? Do you just have to know the market and drive around and look up the address and the owner of record, or what?
Well, the nice thing these days is there's information services out there. One that we use is tryreonomy.com, Try. I never know how to spell ONOMY. TRYREONOMY. Tryreonomy.com. They have incredible information. I mean, it's expensive, but they'll show you in your market area all of the multi-unit properties that you want to look at. They'll show you the number of units. They'll show you, when it was last sold, what debt is against it. They'll show you owner information, and get this, not just the LLC and like the address that the tax bill goes to. I don't know how they do this. They show you the owner's cell phone number,
Oh yeah,
like home phone number, email address. It's insane. You got to be careful, reaching out to someone like that to where it's called cold emailing technique. And generally what we try and do is reach out with something of value a lot of times, like, hey, I'm looking at properties in the Baker Heights neighborhood. I noticed you've got a property there. I've put together a report that shows you all the rents in the area. I just want to send that to you just as a no obligation way to get acquainted.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
If you want that, just reply back this email. I'll send it to you. If you don't, no worries. I won't bother you again.
So you'd
I know
rather
you're
do
busy.
that, like send them something of value first than just call them right away and say, hey, I'm looking to buy properties in your area. I like your complex.
That's the other option is, hey, drove by your property the other day. In fact, when I drove down the highway that went right through the middle of the metropolitan area, I looked to the right. I looked up all the properties off to the right. There's like several million that way. I looked off to the left, several million properties off that way. So I drove by your property the other day, right?
That's it.
It looks like a nice, from what I could see, looked like maybe a nice place. You interested in selling, or probably not?
Okay.
I'm big on negative phrasing. Probably you probably have no interest whatsoever in selling. It just makes it so you get the, if you're going to do like calling people, you got to make it where it's fun. The challenge people have when they first get started with something like real estate investing is like, well, call these people and you look for a motivated seller. And, if you hate calling people, you're not going to do it for very long. You're going to do it and you get rejected. So you use negative phrasing language like that, like, hey, I didn't know if you had any interest in selling. Probably not. Probably just, you want to keep it and wait till this whole COVID thing blows over or whatever. No, I don't want to sell. No, I didn't think you would. But, while I got you on the phone, you know anyone else that might want to sell? Do you know a good broker? Do you know a good property manager? Do you, create a little bit of a relationship? So that's one angle, going after, actually talking to brokers, but developing a relationship with brokers where you can let them get to know them and let them know, hey, I'm looking for, the way I do it is I over exaggerate, right? You don't want the retail stuff. So you got to over exaggerate something that has some upside value. So I used to just say, yeah, I'm looking for something with little low rents, or, where we, deferred maintenance, we can improve it, increase the value, and they send you the retail stuff.
Which is kind of like what every single person looking for multifamily is looking for.
Right. Right.
Probably
Of course.
tells them.
So what I do is, and it's what I teach my students, we call them and say, I'm just looking for crap. If you got something that's boarded up, about ready to fall over, a piece of junk that no one else would even be interested in, that's my kind of deal. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Please don't send me anything that's, has like very many tenants in it. If it does have tenants in it, I don't want to be paying, that kind of thing. And so you basically, the other thing with commercial brokers is, in developing a relationship, anytime you're doing a relationship, it's always better to give first before you receive. So if you think about it, if you're developing this database of commercial property owners and calling people and talking to owners, you're going to find people, as an investor, you're going to find people who have a nice property that's all fixed up, that doesn't have any value add to it. They need a good commercial broker to list that property for them.
Right.
So if you're out calling people and generating leads to buy properties that you can wholesale or end up owning yourself, you should be generating some good listing leads. And so what I've done over the years, and what I teach my students to do, is to take those listing leads and give them to the brokers who are open to working with an investor. A lot of times I see them as the younger, more hungry commercial brokers. They're not so set in their ways of like, okay, great, send me proof of funds and then maybe I'll talk to you, kind of thing. They're willing to hustle and work a little bit. And basically you just start feeding them leads and oh, hey, great, you got a listing, you got a sale. That's awesome. No, you don't owe me anything. Can't pay me commissions because I don't have a license anyways. It's not legal, but you'll come across something. We'll do a deal somewhere. And they'll find a deal. I've had brokers find me deals where we did creative terms on. I've had brokers find me deals where I went in and did a commercial master lease. Did a commercial master lease on a property one time. Am I allowed to say this on the podcast? Is it like SEC guidelines or something?
I don't know. I'm not really into it. I think we'll get away with it. I don't think we're like Joe Rogan out there.
I had a realtor bring me a property. He couldn't list it. He tracked down the owner had died, so he, through his marketing, was reaching out to the passed away owner's name in California. Do you want to list your property? I'm a broker. I'd like to sell it. He got him on the phone, and the way I know he was good on the phone is because he called me on my cell phone. Now my cell phone is not available anywhere
Yeah.
back then or now, right?
Yeah.
He called me on my cell phone and said, "Hey, I noticed you got that 12 unit over on Clay Street. I was wondering if you'd be interested in selling." I'm like, "I'm not, but I think that's awesome that you called me on my cell phone. How'd you do that?" And he says, "Well, I looked and he said, I looked at the ownership and I saw the entity that had it, and it was your name as the manager of the entity. And then I looked and there was this place, Conti Automotive in Wheat Ridge. This is in the Denver area. Conti Automotive. I actually got to where I had my own little auto repair shop for a few years there. And I thought, well, maybe there's a connection there. So I called the repair shop, which at that point I'd sold the repair shop to an employee, and he was running the thing and making me payments because I didn't want to be in the auto repair business, right? I'm doing my real estate. So he called and said, "Hey, I'm trying to get a Peter. You don't happen to have a way to get?" "Oh, sure. Here's his cell number. Call him." I thought, you know what? You are a little hustler. You're a good connection. So I, went out to breakfast, lunch with him a couple of times. He had a son the same age as mine. We create good rapport, right? That's creating rapport. You find something you have in common. You got kids, I got kids.
Sure. Yeah.
Too. Tell me about your kids. That's, creating rapport, friendship, connection. And so anyways, they wouldn't list it with him because they didn't want to sell it because the mom, Corrine, was still alive. She was 88 years old. It was fully depreciated. If they sold it, they would have to recapture all that depreciation and pay over $100,000, about $120,000 in taxes. If they waited until Corrine passed away, the value moves up to market value at that point in time, and they save $120,000. So they didn't want to list it with Tim. Tim said, "Hey, I can't do anything with this. What maybe you can do?" He didn't understand what I did. He said, "Maybe one of your creative weird things you do or whatever, you can do something." So I called him up, talked to him a little bit, got him to come out. They flew from California to Denver. Now, if you can get a seller to fly into town to meet with you about a property, that is like, that stacks the deck totally against them. They're there to put the deal together. You're kind of like, "Oh yeah, we got 6 or 7 deals going. I'm not sure I like this one. Tell me why you really want to sell it." That whole positioning thing. Get this. I meat him at the property. There's a problem. We go out there. We go down in the boiler room, down these stairs, the little light bulb, 40-watt light bulb or whatever. There's this black water. It's 1.5 feet deep on the floor of the boiler room. And the bubbles coming up, bubble, bubble, bubble. And this guy in the dark blue, shirt thing, the HVAC guy that's getting paid like $140 an hour overtime on the weekend is standing there looking at it. And, that looks like a nightmare if you're not used to property, right? This oh my goodness, what is this? This is, get me out of here. But it's not, it's a problem, but it's, it's like a $10,000 or $15,000 problem. It's not it's not the end of the world. It's, you get someone that knows what's wrong and you get them in there and let them deal with it. They've done it before, whatever they do, bust up the concrete and find the pipe and, they fix it. Right.
Yeah.
But it was such a great, it's like, I had one of my students one time, he bought this 4-unit. He said he negotiated with the seller right out back by the stinky dumpster. It's like you find the very best spot. So anyways, we put together a commercial master lease. Corrine, the owner, she needed $3,000 a month to pay for her nursing home care. Mm-hmm. She had Alzheimer's. They figured this building would take care of her. The building was only producing $2,000 free and clear, only producing $2,000 in net operating income. I looked at the financials over the previous 2 years that they sent me, and I saw all kinds of charges for this, charges from that, from property management companies. They'd gone through 2 or 3 different property management companies. When I went out and looked at the property, there were 2 apartments that were rent ready, carpets clean, painted, sparkling, ready to go. There was not a for rent sign in front of the property. What does that tell you? Right? Us landlords, first thing we do, if we know something's coming up, we're banging that for rent sign out in front. That's your cheapest, best advertising. And so I looked at it, and just looking at the numbers, I could see where if I managed it myself in the beginning, I could save $1,000 a month. I mean, I cut back on some expenses and stuff right away, but I said, okay, I'll give you the $3,000 a month you need to solve your problem. And you just need to agree to sell it to me at some point in the future when, and I'll pay the price that the realtor Tim was going to list it for. I'll pay the full list price at that point in the future. Now, the other thing I didn't share with them is that the rents were below market, quite a bit below market. So that's perfect situation. And the funny thing about this is I put this whole thing together. I had the paperwork all done. I asked my wife about it. I said, what do you think? I'm not putting any money into this deal up front. I'd arranged to make the first payment on the 15th so I could collect the rents and then use the rents to make that first $3,000 payment. I said, what do you think, honey? And, she's like, oh gosh, I don't know. It's not, it sounds good, but sometimes, it could be too good to be true. She said, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. And I said, okay, well, I appreciate your advice, honey. I'm kind of more of the real estate guy. So I'm going to, I'm going to, I'm going to take a look at it and I'm going to try and make a decision. I'll let you know what I think. So I actually rode on my mountain bike up the hill. There's this lookout mountain. You can ride up there and sat down looking out over the view of the city and had the contract and the documents and stuff with me. And I just sat down there and looked through this thing and basically the way it was written, it was written, I'm going to be able to buy it, take it over, use the rents to make the payments on it. And if I wanted to get out of it, the way it was written, all I had to do was stop making the payments and they would take it back over. Right. And that's how we structure all of our creative acquisition strategies.
So this is the contract you ended up giving them? And
this one, at that point in time, I didn't have my own contract like I do now.
Uh-huh.
I've templated stuff that I use and provide to my students. But back then, this was actually put together between myself and their attorney that they hired, put this whole thing together. And they wanted for sure, they didn't want it to be a master lease option. They wanted it to be purchased. They wanted to know for sure I was going to buy it, which I've learned, interestingly enough, there's no such thing as a sure purchase, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference between a lease option and a lease purchase? People say, well, one, you have to buy it, and the other one, you have the option to buy it. Well, in the one where you have to buy it, what you do in the purchase contract is you just make sure that the default language for you as the buyer says that if you default as the buyer, that the seller keeps anything that you paid him to that point in time as full and complete liquidated damages and hold you harmless from that point forward. So it turns it into basically a lease, what you can tell people, and it really is a lease purchase. We give them the actual purchase agreement that has the default. You've probably seen default language where you can either check liquidated damages or specific performance where the seller could sue you for not buying it.
Sure.
You just make sure you have the liquidated damages clause in there. And that's the way this one was set up. And I looked at it, I thought, what's the downside? I'm going to lose some of my time in this thing. So I said, no, honey, I told my wife, we're going to go ahead and get this, took it over. We had our date to take title to actually, come on title to the property. At this point was set where whenever Corrine passed away, at that point in time, we would take title. Oh, and I took it to another mentor of mine. And I said, hey, I've got this deal. I just want to see what you think. And is there any way I could make it better? He looked at it. He goes, man, this is a home run. I said, is there any way I can make it better? He goes, the only way to make it better would be if you could get the owner to agree to carry the financing when you take title. So I went back to him and said, we're feeling pretty good about this. We just have one last thing we want to change. Could you agree to carry the financing? Because we're not getting the depreciation. Because we're not going to be on title. We normally get that. That's a problem. Would you be willing to carry the financing for 30 years? At this point, Corrine is like at home or whatever. They need her in the nursing home. They just had this issue, this nightmare with the boiler room,
Right.
And so they said, yeah, we'll carry the financing for 30 years. So I take over the property. We go in. The rents were like crazy low. We out of 24 units, they're all on month-to-month leases. We put a templated letter. I still use this today and share it with my students where it says, hey, thanks for being a great tenant. I hope you've enjoyed having your rent at way below market rates for all these years. Unfortunately, times are changing. It's going up. And we wouldn't boost them all the way up to market rent, but we'd boost them like 75% of the way. In this letter, we'd say, we appreciate you so much. We're going to paint any one room if you want. You have your choice. You can have a room painted. You can have your carpets cleaned. You can have the services of our handy person for half a day. We're going to do all that stuff anyways. Might as well give it to the tenants as a gift, right?
Yeah, make them think it's extra.
Yeah. We didn't want a mutiny. So what we did was we did 8 1 month, 8 the next month, 8 the third month. And out of the 8 each month, about half, 3 1 month, 4 and 5, whatever, said, you're crazy. I've been paying this low rent all these years. I'm not paying it anymore. We're like, great. That's fine. Let me open the door so you can move out of here, get all your stuff out of the way. So our crew can come in, paint, clean the carpets, get this place spruced up and rent it for full market rent. So did a few things to lower the expenses. Like instead of the big dumpster that everyone up and down the alley uses to dump all their stuff and furniture into, we went to a small, tiny dumpster that we had emptied twice a week for about the same price. And so the net effect was we were able to increase the income from that property by $85 per unit, multiplied by 24. And it was break even going in, right? Because I figured out how to do the property management myself, come up with the $33,000 that Corey needed. So 85 times 24, I haven't done this in a while, so I'm a little bit off on the math, was a little over, I think it was like $2,024 a month.
Yeah.
Which is what, almost like $24,000 or $25,000 a year, something like that.
Yeah. And so
where's that money go?
Right in your pocket.
HIP National, now you pay taxes obviously on it, but HIP National Bank, right, is what people say.
Mm-hmm.
What does that do to the value of the property? If you've increased the value by $24,000 a year, you divide that by a 7 cap.
Yeah. That's a lot.
That's like $400,000.
I was going to say, yeah, probably. So
that's in 3 months by a former auto mechanic who just doesn't know that much, but knows kind of how to figure out some of this stuff. You can I call it turning $1 into $10 is what I call it. So get this. So we're plugging along, and one day, and this was a few years later. I don't know, 3 or 4 years later, the property value has gone way up. And we continue to increase the rents and stuff beyond that. And I didn't manage it very long. I managed it, I think, for 5 or 6 months, and I got a property manager that took it over and ran it from that point on. And we got this notice. My property manager called and said, "Peter, there's this a notice on the property. Is a problem." And it said, "We're canceling your agreement," or something like that. And I'm like, "What is this? I don't think so." And they tried to defeat my interest, right? Because the value's up so much. They don't want, they knew I was going to make some money on it. They didn't know I was going to make that much money.
Yeah.
And they said I didn't fix it up enough. They said I fixed it up too much. They said I did. They came up with like this gobbledygook, attorney came up with like 100 things that Peter did wrong. And I had one thing I did wrong, which it's called the rule of imperpetuities. We had written the contract where it said when Corrine passes away, then Peter's entity can take title. You can't have an agreement that goes like forever. Now, we all knew that Corrine was going to die at some point, so we didn't think to put a date. What it should have said was when Corrine passes away or 20 years from now, whichever comes first. So, but that was a minor thing. And my attorney said, no, that's not going to kill off the whole contract. That's a thing that you find a way to correct it. And anyways, I just held firm. And get this, I kept sending those $3,000 checks, and guess what they did with them?
I don't know. They didn't cash them or what?
They put them in the bank. Every month I sent the payment, they cashed it. Right. And if you've got an agreement that someone's contesting saying you don't have an agreement, and every time you send them the payment on that agreement, they put it in a bank, that is confirming that agreement and making it very hard for them to win anything. So they eventually backed down. They even paid my legal fees. And what I did was I gave them the concession. Remember, I said they agreed to carry the financing for 30 years.
Yeah.
I said, I'll bring in new financing, and you don't have to carry it for 30 years if you're willing to just, drop this thing and let me peacefully take title. Now, I've learned since then there's some things we do. There's something called a performance mortgage that we use now, that we secure against the property. Some people say, well, you record your option. That's really pretty weak. I've had people walk around a recorded option before. I've found a way to do something called a performance mortgage. The other thing we get all of the closing paperwork, the purchase contract, the deed. We get everything done up front, and we put it in an escrow. Now, people will say, wait a minute, Peter, that, someone that knows title work, they'll say that's stale documents. You can't close on that. That's true. A title company won't want to close on documents that were signed, 5 years ago. But if a seller has signed those documents already, and you go back to them and say, hey, this deed that you signed before, the title company wants you to, I don't know, they want it on their letterhead or whatever. It's the same exact thing that you signed before. Could you just sign this new one? They have a real hard time saying, no, I'm not going to sign that, if they've already signed it. So anyways, they kept trying to defeat it. We held ground, kept sending the payments. We finally got them to back down. We brought in new financing. without putting a penny more into it. The guy that did the refi, he's like, I just can't see where you have any money into this. I'm like, I told you I don't have any money into it, and I'm not going to put any money into it because it makes such a great story.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
So the cash flow was so good on it. I actually got it on a 10-year loan and was just paying that thing down, paying that down. And at the point in time I sold it, I almost had the loan paid off, and I sold it for close to 1.2 million.
And what was the price that you had negotiated to buy it for to begin with?
It was $450 was my price.
Oh, sweet! What a deal!
And I owed less than 100,000 at the point when we sold it.
What'd you do?
So now that took time. I mean, I think I owned it for about 15 years. So this wasn't like a overnight thing.
Right.
And so that's I mean, I hesitate to tell this deal because I bought this property with nothing down. I made $1 million. And if you tell someone like, I mean, I can't tell my neighbors that story, right? They're like, they don't understand real estate. Number one. Number two, like, yeah, right, sure, you made $1 million. Okay. You believe what you want. I'll tell you, that's the cool thing about commercial real estate is you don't need you don't need 1,000 units. You don't need properties all over the country. You find one good commercial deal, and I'll tell you what, it can set you for life. It can set you for life.
No, I agree. And then too, if you compound that with like 1031s and then working your way up from one property to another over time, that definitely compounds and gets you into making good money with not that much initial money into it. So I want to, before we kind of start our transition out, I want to kind of get something like a tangible thing that people that want to get into this. So my first question would be, right now during like this COVID time and over the next 8 to 10 months, first, what are your thoughts? Should people still be out there looking? Should they kind of hold back a little bit? What should they do over the next, 6 to 12 months in their real estate?
Great question. Two things that you got going in your favor to get going with commercial real estate right now. Mm-hmm. Number one, my viewpoint is that there's two camps of people. This is what I see going on. There's two camps of people. There's people who are worried about the economy, about people paying their rent. Are you not going to be able to do evictions? That it just is, everything's going to come apart. And then there's the other camp of people who are more like me. We understand, hey, this is a challenge. I mean, it's very difficult, especially for people who have loved ones that are affected by the virus. I mean, it's a horrible time, right? Mm-hmm. But we've been through challenging stuff like this as a country before. We'll find our way through this. We will develop a vaccine. Maybe we learn new ways to, maybe restaurants are outdoor seating with a roof over it rather than, I don't know how that works in the wintertime, right? But we'll figure that out. Yeah. So people are going to need a place to live. In fact, right now, my belief is that people need a good place to live more than anything. They need a place where they can have like a 24 unit we got under contract a couple weeks ago. We went in, looked at it the other day. There's these 2 maintenance rooms just with some extra screens and parts and stuff in there. I'm looking at that. I'm going, okay, that's not a maintenance room. That is an office. We're going to rent that baby out for $350 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people need a place to live, and we've got our challenges right now. I get that. And people are saying unemployment. I mean, you can look at a lot of people are making more on unemployment now than they were working.
Oh yeah.
And what we're seeing in the properties we're involved with is that people are paying the rent. I know there's places where collections are down and that's an issue, but you've got this dichotomy. You've got the people are just focusing on all the uncertainty and they are becoming motivated sellers. Mm-hmm. And then you have people, whether it's, someone like myself or the investors that we look to when we're looking, we've got a property that we've got under contract from one of these people that are freaked out about the whole pandemic. We're getting them at not just creative terms, but another technique we use is, like you were talking about how you deal with brokers and stuff like that. One of the techniques we use is we have a standard commercial purchase contract that, I provide it as a template. I'm not an attorney. I tell people, hey, have it approved by your own attorney, blah, blah, that whole thing. We fill in like 3 or 4 blanks. Everything else is all pre-filled in. In fact, I've got a developer working on our system where my students can just go online, enter that information, and it's going to turn it into a PDF with their signature on it. gives it right to them where they can email it directly to the owner or the broker, right? It's called the shotgun method of making offers.
Yeah.
You just offer low, offer low, offer low. And we've used this before the pandemic to just get the conversation going. They come back and they say, "What are you, crazy? We wouldn't sell it for that." Okay, well, what do you think? Or maybe, tell you what, let's get the seller and you, the broker, and me. Could we get together on? Used to be, do you have a conference room? The three of us could get together and sit down. These days, this is the other advantage you have of getting started right now is people don't want to meet in person, right? So it's like, let's get together on a conference line, Uber conference, free conference call system. It's amazing. I don't know how they do it. It's totally free.
Yeah.
Zoom, you can get a free account, or I think I pay, I don't know, $25 a month or something for mine, up to 100 people.
Yeah.
Get a Zoom account and you can meet with people like right from home. Why would you ever want to take time to drive across town and meet with someone? You can do it on Zoom like you and I are doing right now.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, I think working this gap between the people who are really uncertain and the people who look at it and say, "Hey, that's an awesome deal you've got under contract." They recognize when you get a property where the rents are below market, what that value increase is.
Yeah.
And because there's investors looking for deals like that, you can, one of the things we do is, and I show my students how to do this, is to use our assignment contract. You sign it and just get a quick hit, make $40,000, $50,000. It's not as good as owning the property long-term, in my opinion, but you make some money up front. You can bring an investor in. It gives you a chunk of money for, maybe structure the deal. It all depends on it. They might give you, who knows, 30, 60,000 for some equity. Maybe they get half the equity in the deal that you structured and put together. Or you find a way to structure it where family and friends, or, find a way to piece the money together and end up keeping the property. And I'm seeing stuff. I know we're talking about this before the podcast. I'm seeing stuff that I haven't seen in years as far as opportunities. It's we're looking at stuff like, are you sure these numbers are right? This is like such an amazing deal. Yes, sign this one up. Sign it up.
Yeah. Okay. So it's definitely, I agree with you. It's always a good time to be looking, and you got to look at like what the opportunity at the time is, like when you said you first bought that property back in 91, that duplex, HUD had a special deal for 5% down for investors. Well, that's because, right, you just came out of the late 80s, which is a recession. The interest rates are really high. I'm sure there was opportunity there to like take advantage of that situation. Just like now, there's opportunity here to take advantage of the situation and people being worried about their property not getting rents and things like that. So real quick, so if somebody's going to go get started, how should they first go find the property? Like find the deal? Should they just look on, like sign up for a Reonomy or sign up for List Source or something? Or what's their first step to going and identifying the properties? Just like a, quick tip.
I think one of the first things I have my students do is just find some properties anywhere. Go on LoopNet, just anywhere. Find some properties, get the numbers and start, we've got some software we use, but our commercial cheat sheet, if you have that, it's a way to just plug the number in and get a quick value. Get the whole process of how am I going to figure out all these numbers? Get that whole thing just out of the way. The cheat sheet isn't giving you something that's down anywhere accurate. It could be off by a reasonable factor, but when you're first looking at a property, you don't need to have it figured out down to the penny. You just need to know roughly what's this thing worth. Should I spend more time on this or not? Do that for a little period of time. Whether there's other calculators and I'm sure free cap rate tools and stuff out there that people can use. Just get familiar with the cap rate formula and run enough deals through that where you can be comfortable saying, okay, I put the numbers in here and that number looks right, to where you get a little bit of confidence in using that formula to determine value is the very first thing.
Yeah.
The second thing is to find ways to start reaching out to property owners. I think, and what I do with my students is I encourage them to go to, I think what you've referred to as off-market properties where they're not listed for sale, where they're talking directly with the owners in the beginning. Now that means you're going to have to talk to a lot of people who say, no, I have no interest in selling, or some people use direct mail. I don't encourage that in the beginning. It can be very expensive to do that. But yeah, put a list together, start reaching out to people, start, going around talking to, call up some property managers and say, hey, I'm looking for a good property manager. I've heard some good things about you. Would you have an interest in managing? I'm building a commercial portfolio. Can you tell me why I should choose you as a property manager? You put them in the role of selling them to you rather than them saying, who are you? And you've never done a deal before, right?
Right.
And then you say, do you know of anyone, do you have any of your properties that, maybe a little rundown or something, or, the owner might be interested in selling, and it's just about connecting and asking people, and who do you know? And before you know it, you're talking to somebody, and you're not ever going to take someone who's not motivated and has a property that's great cash flow and no reason to sell it. You're never going to convince them to, hey, there's this great technique I learned about it on the podcast. It's,
they got to have a reason to like want to sell or whatever.
When people have the motivation and the reason, everything falls into place.
Yeah. And so
that's when you say, would you be open to, possibly, doing this?
Yeah. Something like owner financing or whatever.
Like, well, yeah. You're kind of like, wow, I've talked to 300 people who've said, no, this is a yes. What do I do now? Right. So,
yeah.
So,
okay.
So,
yeah. And one of the things I've done before, like if I'm in an area and if I don't have Reonomy or ListSource or something, CoStar, which is really expensive, but you can even go on like Craigslist and find apartments that are for rent, or go on apartments.com and use their map and search in like little areas. And then you can just like look at ones that seem to be older. If they're on apartments.com, apartments.com, I think will at least list like properties that don't have any vacancies. And they'll just list it as like an apartment in that area. So,
right.
Okay. That's lots of good information. So, tell us, where can people find out more about you, Peter, your coaching program, mentorship program, all that kind of good stuff?
Well, I don't really have any promotion or whatever on my website. It's I don't know. I think what I can provide for people is I've just come out with a new book. It's called How to Profit with Commercial Lease Options, and it's coming out on Amazon really soon for $25. But for listeners of the podcast, if they go to petersfreebook.com, you can get a free copy of it there. I think it's currently, as we're recording this, available as an ebook. Pretty soon it's going to change to where you get the printed book if you just cover the shipping and handling. But awesome book, 145 pages, walks you through the entire commercial lease option process. And, that's got our contact information in there as well. So petersfreebook.com. will take you to that. My website, if someone wants it, is realestate101.com. But I think before someone considers, hiring a coach or getting a mentor, I think why not get the guy's book, right?
Yeah.
In the books, the way I write my books is I find if I teach everything that I can in a book, and I can't like teach someone how to use the right tonality, for example, like I do, with my mentoring clients. But I found if I can teach everything I can with someone in a book, and maybe they can get out there and get some initial success, or at least understand the entire process, then, the people who are serious, they might reach out and want to do something more. But I had Tim Mai, some people know him. He's one of the trainers around the country or whatever. He told me the story of, he said, Peter, I go into a bookstore, and your book, I read it in the bookstore. I know by your book. I read your book. Then I go do my first deal. Peter, I make a $50,000 on my first deal. I know by your book. I feel bad. I know by your book. So it's all good. I said, hey, Tim, no worries. That's awesome. I'm glad I, helped get you started. To me, that's what my life is about, is if I can help someone out there who's listening, maybe listening to this podcast, if this got you a little kick in the butt, or a little bit encouraged or motivated to do something that you've been thinking about doing for a very long time, which is getting started investing in real estate, I would encourage you to go after commercial apartments, but do whatever avenue you want. Just get out there and just find a way and start doing it. I mean, it doesn't have to be with me. It doesn't have to be my book, but find a way to get out there and get started doing. And you know what, you do stuff, and by doing it, you learn you learn and you make mistakes along the way. If you do it using the creative methods that I teach you how to do, it's very, very hard. If you're going to do a deal with none of your own money and you have the ability to basically turn it back over to the owner at any point in time, if it doesn't work out right, you're risking your time, but you're not putting your life savings at risk. That's the way to do it. So yeah, petersfreebook.com. And that'll be my gift to you, to give you guys a book to get you started and out there investing. And you can be one of the people that, I love it when people say, hey, I read your book when I got started or whatever.
Yeah.
I love that. And it lets me know I'm living my life purpose, that I've helped people to do the same thing that I did. I went from auto mechanic to becoming successful at real estate. And I just feel so lucky to have figured that out. I remember how scared I was back when I first started, how overwhelming it was. I didn't think it would ever be possible. And if I can help you overcome that obstacle in any way, that really brings joy to my heart.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, we all appreciate it. I'm going to get on there and get that ebook going myself. So, Peter, thanks for all this great information. It was a great story. And, hopefully, like you said, it inspires somebody to take that step and move on to the next phase of their life. So again, Peter, thank you. And all the information will be in the show notes, and you have a great afternoon.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Take care. And everyone else listening in, have a great day.